This is Mr. Taylor. This presentation will be on plagiarism and academic dishonesty for the CP composition course. So to begin, I'd like to give a little bit of explanation about the terms plagiarism and academic dishonesty. Plagiarism is more of a direct copying without giving credit to an original source. This can sometimes be done inadvertently, and today's presentation is primarily about the type of plagiarism that is done inadvertently. Um, Academic dishonesty may be some variation of dishonest work, of a level of cheating. Maybe we'll talk about some ways that that can happen, either by accident or on purpose. But making up sources, misrepresenting data, skewing something in order to make your thesis seem like it's tenable when really you are not able to defend it. So we'll go into what those different things might look like. The main point of the presentation will be just to show you how to protect yourself from plagiarism. That is, to make sure that you're doing everything in your power to prevent being accused of or being found guilty of plagiarism, even if you didn't mean to do it. So I do like to say, with CP composition, one thing I like to remind students about is that a research paper is one of the required elements of CP composition. In order to sort of pass the class, you have to complete a finished research paper. And it's important to keep that in mind, that if part of your paper is plagiarized, and if significant portion of it is plagiarized, you will not get credit for a completed paper, and you will have to rewrite it completely, but still get a 0 on the paper. And so it is in your best interest to double check all of your sources before you hand the paper in, so you don't create a situation for both you and the teacher where you're unable to pass the course. So what are some things you can do to prevent plagiarism? Um, some of it comes down to how you will take the notes. It really just be organized. It's the list here says take notes carefully and include citation. Noodle Tools is a way to do that. It's not the only way. You just need to make sure that whatever quotes, summaries, or paraphrases you're pulling from sources, that you are making sure to connect those to the sources that they came from. If you do that, you'll be okay. Label your ideas. If you have an idea in your paper and you are explaining why this defends your thesis, then maybe have that in your notes. You don't want to mix up your idea with somebody else's idea. And the more confusing that gets, the more trouble you could find yourself in. It is your job as the writer to make sure that the reader knows when you are speaking and when an expert is speaking. And if you can't delineate that, if you can't make that really clear, then you've got to go back and revise, and you have got to make that clear. You do want to quote exactly, and all I really mean by that is double check your quotes. It is a sign of laziness if your quote is mistyped, spelling is wrong, if you didn't take the time to exactly use the words of the expert, if that's what you're doing. And that can be very problematic. It is a red flag. And I point to, a lot of times papers fail from plagiarism due to the number of red flags they have. It's not simply one mistake, it's mistake after mistake after mistake that seems to just really get across the point of carelessness, that they really took no time to give credit to the people who had done the research before them. And this goes into confusion or ignorance is not an excuse. Now, at the high school level, as college prep seniors, but also going into your first semester of college next year, you can't simply feign ignorance. You either do it correctly or you don't belong in the course or in the college that you're at. And that is the line that a lot of schools will take. If you can't seem to write a paper without plagiarizing, you'll be asked to leave a college. Here at the CP composition level, you'll fail the paper. what's being asked is really just to follow the directions, but you can't just come in and say, I got confused or I didn't know what to do, because that is what you are being graded on, is your ability to know what to do. That's a very, very sort of frustrating response for an instructor. Finally, the last thing I like to just remind you of is it's a great idea to have access to all of your sources, to be able to quickly bring those to a teacher or a professor's um, attention. If they may ask you for your sources at some point. There are times when a professor may just want to see what you were working with. Maybe they want to check to see if you did plagiarize, but if anyone ever asks for your sources, your response is kind of universally just, okay, I'll get them to you as soon as I can. Yes, it may be a little bit of an anxious situation, but it doesn't mean you're guilty of plagiarism. It could just be checking up on some of the materials that you used. But that is really kind of the academic standard, that you're able to have a copy of the material you used. Um, so the next phase here, as far as preventing plagiarism, is really looking at quotes and then paraphrases and summaries and making sure we're setting them up so they're not plagiarized. So what do you have to do to make sure that your quote doesn't throw up a red flag, isn't plagiarized, doesn't create problems within your paper? Well, one, be careful not to overquote, quote one source too many times, or use a quote that is too long. All three look like padding and do not demonstrate critical thought. What can happen is writers will use one source over and over and over again for their paper, and that is verging on plagiarism. The idea with a research paper is that you are combining different sources in order to defend your thesis, not doing a book report and quoting the same source over and over and over again. So be very careful of that. It's a mistake that you can fall into when you're not finding the research that you need. And in that case, maybe you need to revise your thesis, maybe you need to research more, but you don't want to rely on only one source for your paper. The other thing with quotes is you can't take the quote out of context or omit words important to the meaning because it's convenient for your argument. This may be tempting if you find a quote that is kind of half for your argument and maybe half not, and you want to sort of pull out the piece that works for you. You do have to take into account the author's intent. If the author is saying something along the lines like many critics will claim that da, 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 is true, however, I'm going to argue the opposite. You can't just use the first part of that statement. You can't just pull that out because the author's intention is to really debunk that and to argue against it. So please be aware of how you use it, because that can be plagiarism also. The misuse of those quotes. When we move into paraphrasing and summary, very quickly, paraphrasing and summary are slightly different in that a paraphrase is about as long as the original. It's just the wording is changed to sound like more like you as the writer and less like the expert who originally came up with the idea and wrote it. A summary is going to take multiple pages, maybe even an entire chapter, and trim that down to a few sentences. Okay? So the key with this is really in how you phrase it and how you write it. So everything should be your vocabulary, your phrases. A lot of people stop with number one right here. They think that once they've done this, paraphrasing is over or summarizing is over, but that's not true. You can actually plagiarize sentence structure. If the way that you write the description, if the way that you rephrase ends up sounding very, very similar, even though you've used different words, but if the sentence structure looks the same, that could also be plagiarism. Not a bad idea to mix up order of ideas if you can, at least as much as possible. Again, that gets you away from sounding like the original. And one of the things you can do that really protects you, because paraphrasing and summary is probably the most likely place you would accidentally plagiarize. One of the things that you can do is mark the boundaries. And in MLA, they make that fairly easy. The rules of MLA actually kind of require you to indicate when you're introducing an outside source, and a lot of times they require something at the end, something in the parentheses. Not every time, but a lot of times they do. And if you do that really, really clearly, at the very least, even if your paraphrase isn't very good, even if your summary is kind of clunky and sort of bad, maybe taken too much from the original, at the very least, you're demonstrating that you tried to give credit to the original source. And that does matter. Let's take a look at an example here. So this is just marking the boundaries. You've got an introduction or a signal phrase, lets the reader know you're about to use a source. Then you've got the actual information from the source, and then you have the information that's right here, which is the source itself. So according to the Union of Concerned Scientists, okay, we know that's coming from somewhere else. Areas that see the most global warming impact are areas with scientific research taking place. As other areas of the world are studied more closely, more impact will be revealed. Now, I don't have an author in this case, but I still have a very clear indication of the end of this paraphrase. And that's because I've saved the title to put in the parentheses. If there was a page number here, that would be perfect. I would put a page number, but this looks like, because there's no page number, it looks like this must be a web source. And I've got the title there that is helping to indicate the beginning. So signal phrase, something in the parentheses. Just a few more things on summarizing and paraphrasing, and I will myself summarize this for you. One of the things that you have here is really get the source, whatever it is that you are writing about, the summary, the paraphrase, whatever you're using. Don't look at it directly while you're writing your version of it. Don't stare at, because what will happen is you will start to steal that style. You will start to steal the words. It will be really hard to reword. It's best to read it once, twice, maybe three times, and then push that away, and then write your summary then. This really helps a lot. It's something I use. It's I think it really makes it sound like you're writing in your voice and not copying the author's voice. And that is the giveaway for plagiarism. I read your paper, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this sounds like it was hijacked by someone else right in the middle of it. Like, it sounds like your paper, and then suddenly it's not any longer. And that is one of the ways that summarizing and paraphrasing gets that red flag, where the style is just not consistent throughout the paper. A few things about the MLA in-text citation, just kind of like five steps here with MLA, just to protect you from plagiarism. You've got to have the signal phrase. You've got to have the author and the page number if they're available. If there's no author, you want the shortened version of the title. You need that stuff. As I've already said, save something for the boundaries. Make it really clear when you're paraphrasing or summarizing when it begins and when it ends. The fourth item here, the information in the in-text should lead directly to a source on the works cited page. All that really means is what's in your parentheses or what's in your signal phrase. If it's an author's name, I need to see that author's name in the hanging indent. That part of the works cited page that sticks out, that matches with the in-text. They go together. That's how MLA is built. It's made to work that way, so that in-text goes to a hanging indent, and that's the first thing you should see. If that is not the case, you've made a mistake in your citations. If you're using, let's say you're using a name, Miller, and I go down and I can't find Miller anywhere on your works cited page as the lead author, you've done something wrong, and you'll have to go back and check it. This last point is one just about paragraph format. Don't write a research paper in the 5-paragraph essay form. It is not intro, point one super long paragraph, point two, another super long paragraph, point three, another super long paragraph. Those supporting arguments often get 2 or 3 paragraphs each. Please make sure you're breaking them up. Now, why is this important? Well, it's a red flag. It's about organization, and it basically shows that your paper is kind of a mess right from the onset, and you want to make sure that when your teacher or professor looks at your paper for the first time, they're seeing everything in MLA format. They're seeing it laid out nicely. It looks like you followed all of the directions as closely as you could, because if you don't do that, you will start to lead down this road of well, is this plagiarized? What's this? Oh, this looks wrong too. And that's where you can get into some difficulty. If you have any questions about plagiarism, if you're not sure how to cite something because you go to do it and it just does not seem right, you're having a lot of trouble with it, you just want to know where an author's name should go or what you should do because you don't have this or that, please feel free to email me. I can help you with those citations, or if it's writing your paper, I can help you with the setup of the in-text citations too. So just let me know. Good luck with your paper, and I hope to see you soon.